Hey everyone, I hope you're all doing really well. Today I'm going to be sharing with you my 9th update in my Those Eyeshadows project pan. This is such a fun project and I'm so happy to be doing it for a second year this year, and I already know I'm going to be doing it in 2021 because I freaking love it. I feel like I'm so inspired by all of the different color stories that I pull. I love creating new looks and playing with new color combinations. I absolutely love reaching into my collection and seeing so many pans in my collection, but also reaching for palettes that maybe I would deem to be like out of season or something that I've kind of been neglecting from my collection. This has just been such a blast and I am just so excited to be doing it yet again. And every one of these updates, when I sit down to film these, I feel like I'm just reflecting on how good of a project pan this is. And I really have my friend Alexi to thank for that because she did this project for 2 years. And I was so excited every time that I saw her hit pan on the eyeshadow in her collection. And she was doing it very consistently. And it just, yeah, it really inspired me. And I'm so happy that I did decide to do this project for myself because I look into my palette collection now and I'm like, dang, like I've brought in a lot of palettes over the past 2 years that I've been doing this project, but everything looks so good and so well used. And I don't know, I just find eyeshadow has been super exciting and so fun for me. And this update, I won't deny, quite honestly, not the best in terms of progress, but it has nothing to do with the actual project itself. It's just that I've been kind of in a state of flux at the moment and trying to figure out my own schedule and that kind of stuff. And eyeshadow just really hasn't been an absolute necessity. It's not been something that I've been doing as frequently. But even with all that being said, I am so excited to share with you all my progress that I've made over the past month since my last update. So let's just hop on into that. So one of the shades that I did roll in last update came from the Revolution Soph X Extra Spice palette. And I did decide to use the shade only one time, and then I realized that that palette I was kind of ready to part with. It wasn't that the formula changed or that I didn't really like the formula. I just realized that it wasn't a palette I was absolutely like head over heels in love with. And through doing this project, I've come to realize I really only want to focus on palettes that I absolutely love. So even if it's not a shade in that palette that I'm super drawn by, I still feel like I want to reach into palettes that I love and that I want to be reaching for and that I would choose to use even outside of this project pan. And that palette for me just didn't really fit that kind of criteria. I really felt like whenever I reached into that palette, it was exclusively because I was in this project pan. That was the 3rd shade that I pulled this year from that palette. And it just wasn't really making sense that I would just hold on to it to eventually roll each and every one of those shades into this project and probably never use them outside of this project pan. So I decided to get rid of it. My cousin is super excited to have it and to play with some of those like muted jewel tones and like metallic neutrals. She was really excited. So I'm happy that it found a new home and she will get so much more use out of it than I will. However, I still have 4 shadows that I've been working on for the past month. The first one I want to talk about comes from the Zulu palette by Juvia's Place. This has now been in the project for 4 months, and I am very pleased to say I finally hit pan on it. I hit pan on it actually only yesterday. I was wearing a ton of warm orange looks over this past month in order to hit that tiny little speck of pan, and I am so excited about it and very proud of it as well. I did reach for this 7 times over the month of September and early October, and that was kind of on par with how I used it throughout this project pan. I actually used it a total of 26 times throughout this project in the past 4 months, and I'm so happy with that. I, of course, had used it many times prior to it being in this project pan, and there is still a ton of freaking product in here, but I'm really happy to see this palette now has 3 pans in it. So, you know, a third of this palette has pans, and I absolutely loved every moment of using this shadow. If I hadn't hit pan on it yesterday, I would have been okay with using it for the next month because it is perfect for the season and it really is a gorgeous, vibrant orange shade, but I can kind of manipulate it to use it however I want. It can be very sheer and kind of just create a wash of color, but I can also have it like super high impact. And actually one of the times that I did use it this month, I used it as a blush all over my cheeks. And then I used my Milani Luminoso blush, which is like a corally shade, to kind of like blend it out. And I loved the way that that looked on the cheeks. It was so warm and so like perfectly fall. So I enjoyed every moment of using this shadow. I'm going to use it even more, even though I have hit pan on it. It's something that I know I'm gonna get a ton of use out of for forever, as long as I can hold on to this palette. And I love this palette as a whole. So it was an absolute pleasure to reach for that shadow. And as much as I love reaching for this, I am excited to draw something new to play around with for the foreseeable future. And the next eyeshadow comes from my Urban Decay Electric palette. In my last update, I did let you guys know that I had only 2 uses left in order to reach my 15 use threshold, which is like the minimum number of uses that I want to use an eyeshadow before rolling it out of this project pan. And I had reached the 3 months actually as of this update. So I did use it that additional 2 times in order to roll it out of this project. There is no pan here, but it is making its way back into my collection. Potentially I'll roll one of these other shadows into this project, but I am happy to have used it 15 times. I feel like over the 15 uses, I created so many fun and different looks using this blue shadow, and even though I'm nowhere near hitting pan on it, I feel like it was really, really great use on it, especially considering this is one of the shades that I was kind of afraid of from this palette, and I really didn't love blues, but integrating this into looks over the past 3 months has taught me that I can rock a blue shadow and I can have some fun with some blues. So it was a treat, and it was definitely the most challenging shade out of this selection for quite some time that I've been working on in this project, but it was really fun, and I'm happy to have used it that 15 times, but I'm also happy to finally be rolling it out and rolling something new in, potentially that I will be able to get a little bit more usage out of and be super excited about bit more, but it was a really great experience using this blue for sure. This next focus shade comes from my sleek iDivine Storm palette, and the shade that I've been focusing on for the past month is this one right here. This one is called Snowstorm, I believe, and it's a beautiful like light champagne frosted kind of shadow. It's what I'm wearing over the entirety of my lid today and on my inner corners, and I love how brightening and like eye-opening this shade is. I think it's just an amazing highlight kind of shade for the inner corner and the brow bone, and I've used it an absolute ton over the past month because of how frequently I can kind of integrate it into looks. I used it a total of 11 times, which is like a lot for me for a month. I know some people use their shadows like 16 or 20 times in a month, but 11 times is pretty substantial for me, and this is what it looks like. As you can see, it's kind of sheer. I can build it up, but I just think it is such a beautiful, beautiful shadow, and it is my favorite shade in this palette, so I've been reaching for it so often. I don't really know how many pictures I took using this shadow this month, but I did mostly honestly wear it as an inner corner highlight, and as of late I've been wearing it kind of topped on top of other shadows on my inner corner or on my lids to just add a bit more brightness to shades. Like Colourpop Lala is in my 20 favorites in 2020 project pan, and I'll put that all over my lid, and then I will put this all over my lid on top of it, and it takes that bright copper shade and it like almost mutes it, and it makes it like a totally different neutral shadow, and I still get some substantial use, and yet I still managed to get really great use on this shade, and it allows me to not have to wear my shadows in like a very uniform kind of way. I can kind of change it up from day to day and still be using the same shadows. It's very, very versatile, even though it's such a like basic neutral kind of shade. And recently actually I wore this shade right here from the Zulu palette on my inner corner and like on the inner portion of my lid, and then I topped that champagne-y kind of shade on top of it, and I just felt like it transformed the shadow and made it a little bit more wearable for the inner corner. And yeah, it's like such a small thing, but it's so nice. I love the way that it just amplifies and changes and transforms shades within my collection. I foresee myself being able to use it again another 10 or more times in the upcoming month. I guess it depends on how much I end up actually wearing eyeshadow, and I'll be able to definitely hit pan on it relatively soon based on that kind of usage. This other shade was in this project and I believe I used it under 20 times, but one of the times I did wear it as a nail polish, I believe. Why can't I totally remember? This year is a blur. This, I'm not sure I need to wear it as a nail polish because I'm absolutely in love with wearing it as a shadow, and I feel like I can just use it so many different ways for the remaining 3 months of this year, if it even takes me that long to hit pan on it. And then the last shadow that I also rolled in last update comes from the Urban Decay Born to Run palette. This palette loves this freaking project pan. It is in this project so frequently, and you can tell. It looks really well loved. The shade that I picked last update is this one here called Drift, which is like a purpley slate gunmetal kind of shade with a metallic finish, and it is so stunning. And there's a swatch of it right there. As you can see, it is such a stunning shade. It is so unique and so different, and I've only used it 3 times this month, which is really disappointing, but it didn't really go with the warm orange that I was really trying to kind of concentrate my efforts on. And I don't know so many ways to wear this quite yet. One time I did use it all over the lid, and I actually mixed this blue and the red from the Revolution palette, and I made like a bright purple in my crease and then this on the lid, and I forgot to take a freaking picture of it, which is so disappointing because that was actually a really cool look. And then the other 2 times I just used it as like a smoky liner on my upper lash line, and that's it. So I definitely need to be more experimental with it in the coming month, but it just didn't end up happening for me. I'm not discouraged by it though. I know that I'll be able to get some decent use out of it. Not sure I'll be able to hit pan, but in any case, I'm really looking forward to playing with it and integrating it into looks because I do think it is a great fall shade to focus on. With that all being said, I am so excited to work my way towards hitting pan on more shadows in my collection. So let's roll 3 additional shades to add to this gorgeous little color story right here. We could get something very nice and cohesive. That would be great. I would be very thankful for that, but let's see what we end up pulling. So I have 278 eligible eyeshadows for this project pan, 278 either individual eyeshadow pans that I could hit pan on, or there are some liquid shadows in that roundup as well that I would use 15 times and then roll out of this project pan because you can't actually hit pan on a liquid shadow, but I want to get some use out of those and not neglect them as much as I have in the longest time. So 278 eyeshadows in my collection, and I did switch up my Google spreadsheet. I know that this kind of stuff maybe is not really relevant, but I have come to realize that I've been kind of consistently getting the same palettes from my collection, so I decided to change up the order of my spreadsheet, just making everything alphabetized. I'm just really hoping to get some more variety, maybe roll in some palettes that have never been featured in this project pan. So yeah, we'll see what we end up rolling, but let's just pull 3 numbers together and then I will refer to my spreadsheet. So we're getting number 44 first, 94, and then lastly, number 16. So I just want to grab all the palettes that these shadows come from. I'm really excited to go through them and swatch them and see how they look with my color story and how they're gonna work together. So the first one comes from my ABH Subculture palette. This was in number 44, and it is the shade Roxy. And I knew what that was. It's the beautiful, like peachy coral kind of shade. And I do have a little bit of wear on this shadow. However, it's not crazy used, even though this palette has been in my life for several years. This formula, however, is quite soft, and I do think that I will be able to hit pan on it in a matter of like maybe 2 months, potentially 3. I love these kinds of shades though, and I don't wear them often enough, so I am really looking forward to integrating this into looks, and I feel like it's gonna go really well with the shades that I do currently have in this project as well. I think it's just gonna be absolutely beautiful. Like, imagine that in the crease with this on the lid and then that on the inner corner. That is a beautiful look right there that I'm really excited to rock, and I'm just really looking forward to reaching for Subculture in general, to be honest, because I neglect this palette even though I absolutely am head over heels in love with this palette. I love this color story. I just feel super inspired whenever I look into it, and I oftentimes forget to reach for it. So this is gonna be so much fun. I'm really looking forward to using it in the coming months. Next up is a shadow from Colourpop. This was number 94, and it is a pressed powder single. It's the shade Stay Golden, which I believe is this like berry crimson kind of color. Yeah, this one Stay Golden. And I'm really excited for this to pair with that coral shade from Subculture and this shade right here. Oh my gosh, like how lucky is this? And this is perfect for this time of year. So I'm really looking forward to using this. I purchased this when Colourpop first came out with pressed powder shadows, which was many moons ago. And it does have a decent sized dip because I've had it in my collection for quite some time, but it doesn't look as well loved as it probably should by this point. And as you can see, it's just kind of perfect with these colors, and I'm so thrilled about that. That like could not be any better in my opinion. And it is an older shadow in my collection that needs to get some love, so that makes it even better. I'm really excited to play with these. I have one last shadow that I did pull for this update, and I haven't yet looked at it, but it comes from this palette right here. If you've been watching this series, you know I only just rolled this out of this project last update, and I have had a different shadow in this palette in the past as well. The shade was called B2. Oh, I thought it was gonna be a purple. It's this one right here. It's a beautiful, like bronzy kind of shade, and not gonna lie, it does not look very well loved or used in my collection. Probably because whenever I think about using this palette, I really do think about the purples and pinks. But this shade might actually be amazing with the shadows that I just drew with both of those mattes. Let's see. Oh my gosh, this is the best. This is the best color story. Well, maybe not the best one. I don't know, I can't pick a favorite, but this is one of the best color stories I've had in this project. This could be the cutest little palette. My golly. Oh my gosh, I'm really actually super excited. I can't wait to play with these. Now this formula from EBH, this does take a while to pan on. However, I have not panned one of the metallics in this palette, so we will see. But I do think I can get some amazing use out of that in the coming months. I don't see that being an issue for me whatsoever throughout this project and for the rest of this year, especially given the shades that I currently have in here. So 3 metallics, 2 mattes. They look bomb all together. I think I should actually create a look using all of these together. Let me know if that's something you'd like to see on my channel. I could probably keep going on and on about how excited I am, but why don't we just end it on this high note where I am just so thrilled about all of my picks for this update. Thank you so much for watching and for hanging out with me, and I will see you in the next one. Bye everyone!